2020. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated safety guidelines put in place by the CDC, the state of Utah, and local health departments, the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources will conduct the May 2020 Regional Advisory Council and Utah Wildlife Board meetings using a fully electronic format. This meeting format was approved through the executive order by Utah Governor Gary Herbert and will be used in place of the in-person public meeting that usually occur around the state. To get started, I'll start by conducting a roll call for the record. Council members, please be ready to unmute your microphone when called upon and give an audible "here" when your name is called. Before I start the roll call, let the record reflect that RAC members David Earl and Aaron Johnson have asked to be excused from tonight's meeting. I'll now at this time do the roll call. Start with Ryan Brown.
Ryan Brown, here.
Paul Chase.
Paul Chase, here.
Junior Goring. Junior, are you there? Okay, Junior, if you are able to click in, just speak up and when you're able to do so. Christopher Hogstrom. Okay, no Christopher at this time. Randy Hutchinson.
Here.
Emily Jenspo.
Here.
Matt Clark.
Here.
Mike Lauder.
I'm here.
Kevin McLeod.
Here.
Darren Perry, were you able to get on?
I was. I'm here. Darren's here.
Thank you. Kristen Purdy. Are you able to see it? Kristen, are you there? Okay. And Casey Snyder. Have you heard from him, Jody?
I seen that he had logged on, and I just talked to Junior, and he's having problems with his microphone. So
I'm
he's
here. Oh, sorry. I just figured out how to mute myself on Google. I'm here.
So Junior's going to communicate through me.
Okay. How do you see Kristen there?
I had seen her on earlier, but I don't know what happened.
I'm here.
Okay.
My brain interfered. I am here.
Okay. And this last was Christopher able to log on? All right.
I seen that he logged off, so I don't know if he's been able to log back on yet.
Okay. Well, at this time, we do have a quorum, and so we'll go ahead and begin. The one thing that I wanted to know is Casey Snyder had asked to be excused for a portion of tonight's meeting due to some other obligations. So Casey, just thanks for joining us, and I just ask that when you do need to leave, that you let us know so I can take note of that. I'd also like to recognize that we are joined by a number of the DWR personnel who are participating live in this evening, including those who provided presentations that are available to answer questions throughout the meeting. Those employees include Heather Talley, Upland Game Program Coordinator, Blair Stringham, Migratory Game Bird Program Coordinator and Assistant Wildlife Section Chief, Lieutenant Bruce Johnson with the Aquatic Invasive Species Program, and Bryan Christensen, Walk-in Access and Dedicated Hunter Program Coordinator, and Jim Christensen, who is the Northern Region Wildlife Section Manager. Also Dave Smedley, Northern Region Wildlife Section Assistant Manager. Dave Beveridge, Northern Region Lieutenant. Jody Anderson and Haley Smith, Regional Outreach Specialists. And Ben Nadowski, Northern Region Supervisor. A special thanks to A special thanks goes to all those countless many who have worked hard to prepare for tonight's meeting. This forum wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for their efforts. And finally, most importantly, I'd like to welcome the public who are tuning in this evening by watching the live broadcast on YouTube. In preparation for tonight's online format, the DWR posted each of tonight's presentations online, and the public was able to view those presentations and submit their written comments for each of those items for 10 days. Due to the sheer volume of comments we received, we will not be able to read those into the record. We will do our best to summarize those public comments for you this evening, and all those comments have been sent to the RAC members in their entirety for them to review and consider. We won't be able to accommodate public comments during tonight's meeting, but RAC members are welcome to address the specific concerns that they received from the public or outlined in the written comments we all received. Just to go over, to make sure everyone's on the same page tonight, we will adhere to the following format for each of tonight's agenda items. I will announce the agenda item, and we will not listen to the presentation by the DWR personnel tonight. All RAC members have been asked to review or to view the recorded presentations online prior to the meeting. The regional supervisor will then summarize the public comments received for that agenda item. I will then call for questions from RAC members on the agenda item. After questions, I will call for RAC discussion, including any clarification or additional information RAC members may request from the UDWR staff. Mike Lauder, our vice chair, and Ben Kijowski, the Northern Region Supervisor, will help me keep track of your input and concerns. We will be able to revisit each of them for discussion motions, including a second followed by a roll call vote. We will repeat this process until we have addressed everyone's feedback. We will repeat the process for each of tonight's agenda items. This process seemed to work well for us during the last meeting, so we will give it a try again tonight. So I ask that RAC members please respect one another's opinions and opportunities to speak this evening. If more than one of you wish to speak at once, please be patient while we call on you one at a time. Please also be sure to clearly communicate your questions and concerns so we can work throughout tonight's meeting efficiently, effectively, and respectfully. With those introductory and housekeeping items taken care of, let's get started by reviewing the agenda, approving tonight's agenda and the minutes of our April 8th, 2020 meeting. Are there any questions or concerns regarding the agenda or the minutes?
Hi, Justin. This is Chris Hoekstrom. Just wanted to get myself in on the roll call.
Thank you, Chris. I've got that. Thanks for letting me know. All right. Did we have any questions or concerns regarding the agenda or the minutes then that was sent out to everyone? All right. If none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll make the motion. This is Mike, that we accept minutes and agenda for this evening.
Matt Clark, I'll second.
This is Ryan.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. We got one from Matt. So I have a first from Mike and a second from Matt. This time we'll go ahead and take roll call or a vote on accepting accepting the agenda. I'll begin with Ryan Brown.
Ryan, in favor.
Paul Chase.
Yes.
Junior Goring.
He says yes.
Okay. Christopher Hoekstrom.
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson.
Yes.
Emily Jensko.
Yes.
Matt Clark,
Yes.
Mike Lauder,
Yes.
Kevin McLeod,
Yes.
Darren Perry,
Yes.
Kristen Purdy,
Yes.
and Casey Snyder.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So motion to approve the agenda passes unanimously. We'll now entertain a motion to accept the minutes from last month's RAC meeting. Is there anyone that would entertain a motion or make a motion?
This is Ryan. I'll make a motion that we accept the minute or the minutes from our last meeting.
Okay, Ryan Brown makes the motion. Any second?
I'll second that. This is Randy.
The second from Randy Hutchison. If there's not any questions concerning that, I'll go ahead and take a vote at this time. We'll begin with Ryan Brown.
Yes.
Who made the motion? I'm guessing that was a yes. Paul Chase,
Yes.
Junior Goring,
Yes.
Christopher Hogstrom,
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson,
Yes.
Emily Jensko, excuse me,
Yes.
Matt Clark,
Yes.
Mike Lauder,
Yes.
Kevin McLeod,
Yes.
Darren Perry,
Yes.
Kristen Purdy,
Yes.
and Casey Snyder.
Yes.
Yes. All right. The motion to accept the minutes or approve the minutes passed unanimously. We will now, let me look at my notes. Excuse me for just a minute to make sure I don't get ahead of myself. I'll now give us an update from the Wildlife Board meeting that took place on April 30th, 2020. Both the action and minutes were approved unanimously. Concerning the bucks, bulls, and once in a lifetime permit recommendations, the following motion was made by Donnie Hunter and seconded by Wade Heaton and passed unanimously. The first motion was that we just decrease the buck deer permits on the cash unit by additional 800 permits for the total decrease of 1,600 from 2019's permit numbers. And that, again, that passed unanimously. Let's see, the following amended motion was made by Donnie Hunter and seconded by Kevin Albrecht and passed 5 in favor, 1 opposed. Carl Hurst was opposed. That motion was to reduce the desert bighorn sheep permits on the West Kaparowitz unit to 12 permits, the same as 2019. Excuse me. The following amended motion was made by Kevin Albrecht and seconded by Randy Dirth and passed unanimously. And it was moved that we increase the Henry Mountains archery only bison permits by 1 permit to equal 2 total resident permits. The following amended motion was made by Kevin Albrecht and seconded by Randy Dirth and passed unanimously, and that was moved to decrease the permits on the San Juan Abajo buck deer hunt by an additional 150 permits, bringing the total decrease to 650, and to ask the division to look at moving the unit to an 18 to 20 buck to doe unit. Following amended motion was made by Carl Hurst, seconded by Wade Heaton, and passed unanimously, and that was move that we keep the bull elk permits on the Central Mountain Nebo unit at the 2019 permit number of 47, and ask the elk committee to address the elk age objectives on this unit and any others that are not meeting their numbers. The following amended motion was made by Kevin Albrecht and seconded by Randy Dirth and passed unanimously. It was that we decrease the buck deer tags on the LaSalle Mountains by an additional 100 permits, bringing the total from 1,300 to 1,200. The following amended motion was made by Wade Heaton and seconded by Randy Dirth and passed unanimously. And it was a move that we accept the remainder of the recommendations for the buck bulls once in a lifetime permit numbers for 2020 as presented. Concerning the antlerless permit recommendations for 2020, the following motion was made by Randy Dirth and seconded by Kevin Albrecht, and it passed unanimously. And they move that we reduce the antlerless tags on the Book Cliff, Bitter Creek South, and Roldis unit to a total of 150 tags. The following amended motion was made by Donnie Hunter and seconded by Brett Selman and passed unanimously. They move that we approve the remainder of the antlerless recommendations as presented. Action item number 5 is the CWMU rule amendments. The following amended motion was made by Randy Dirth and seconded by Wade Heaton and passed unanimously. They move that we approve the CWMU rule amendments as presented. And with the 2020 CWMU antlerless permit recommendations, the following amended motion was made by Carl Hurst, seconded by Brett Selman, and passed with 5 in favor and 1 recusal. Wade Heaton recused himself due to his affiliation with CWMUs. And the motion was, I move that we approve the CWMU antlerless permit recommendation as presented with the presented corrections, I guess. The next would be item number 7, the management bison hunts, the 9 Mile Range Creek unit. The following amended motion was made by Kevin Albrecht, seconded by Randy Dirth, and passed unanimously. I move that we approve the management bison hunt on the 9 Mile Range Creek unit as presented. Action item the next item number 8 would be managing predatory wildlife species policy revisions, and the following amended motion was made by Randy Dirth and seconded by Wade Heaton, and it passed unanimously. And it was that we approve the managing predatory wildlife species policy revisions as presented. And the last would be the cougar and bear rule amendments, and the following amended motion was made by Donnie Hunter and seconded by Wade Heaton, and it passed unanimously. And it was motion to approve the cougar and bear rule amendments as presented. That is the update from the Wildlife Board. Are there any questions on any of that I presented? If not, we'll go ahead now and go to our regional update by Ben Nadowski.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably could let you have a minute to get a drink and wet your whistle. That was a lot of information to cover in the beginning, so appreciate you doing that. Good to see everybody here tonight. Again, I'm Ben Nadowski, Regional Supervisor here in the Northern Region. And as you can imagine, our COVID-19 efforts have been challenging at times, but I just wanted to share with the RAC that just my personal observations that I've been really impressed with the staff of the Northern Region and just how productive everybody has been in spite of the limitations that COVID has put in front of us. A lot of people are really counting on the outdoors to get through a lot of this quarantine and isolation from friends and family. And so our staff has been out keeping social distance themselves, but we work in a lot of different remote places and they've been really productive. And it just kind of goes to show the culture and the people that we have and the caliber of folks that we have. one of the real bright spots that I reported on in our last meeting was some of the work that's going on in our waterfowl management areas. Out at public shooting grounds, they're working on a silt removal and island restoration project that was really just getting kicked off the last time we met, and things are looking really promising there. The project continues to move forward, and we're getting some really good results. At Ogden Bay, they're working on an impoundment restoration on the north end of the WMA, and they were working on that again last time, but they report for tonight that, again, that's just going exceedingly well. And as related to one of our agenda items tonight, the Willard Spur WMA, we just recently completed a contract. We'll be mowing 350 acres of frag out there at Willard Spur WMA. So that's encouraging news as well. It does look like we're not going to be able to, we won't be banding urban geese this year, and we're a little concerned about our ability to band geese at all this year, and same with pelicans. So some of our field work we're able to really adjust, and our staff are working on different field protocols to ensure staff safety and public safety in terms of exposure to COVID. And some of those protocols we're able to ensure our safety, but some of them we're just not. Some of our activities just bring too many people into too close proximity, and we're worried about our goose banding, that might be one of them. We haven't made a decision to cancel it yet, but that's something that's on our minds right now. Our habitat section has been really busy. We got a late start due to COVID on our WMA maintenance, but we've got all of our seasonal help on board, and our employees are out on the WMAs spraying weeds, cleaning up signs, and so on. So that's taking up a lot of time right now, but they've also been working on coordinating a guzzler installation project on the north part of the Pilot Mountains. So they're working with the Chucker Foundation and volunteers there to install 5 guzzlers on the north end, and that's been a challenge because we have employees and helicopter pilots that are in close proximity, and we've got work sites that are really remote, and so we've got a protocol in place to make sure that still happens, so that the birds and hunters of Utah are able to take part in some of those benefits. So that's been a really big effort, but it's something that our habitat folks are really excited about. Our habitat section will also be finding out this week. They've been really busy on proposing habitat projects around the region, and the Habitat Council is meeting this week, and we'll be making some funding decisions. So in our next meeting, hopefully we can have some updates on what work will be moving forward. In our fisheries section, we stocked 20,000 2-inch tiger muskie fingerlings into Pineview Reservoir, as well as just almost 3,000 in Newton Reservoir. Interestingly, when we had that earthquake in Magna, we lost some of our production capability for our muskie program. And so we're really thankful for the help of our partners at the Nebraska Game and Parks for helping us get our muskie quota to a full quota this year, in spite of those complications. So that was really encouraging. We also recently stocked Willard Bay with 6,000 catchable wipers and 250,000 2-day-old wiper fry. That's something that we do each year, and our fisheries folks have done a ton of work to figure out what the right recipe is there. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like fishing at Willard Bay is really picking up. The last time we met, I think we had just made a decision to postpone our walleye spawning effort out at Willard Bay. And luckily, we were still able to get quite a few eggs and milk from walleye at that point. So we are going to be stocking 2-inch walleye fingerlings that we produce from that effort here shortly. We also have a spawning operation at Bear Lake to collect eggs and milk from Bear Lake cutthroat trout, and that operation will be getting up into full swing if it isn't already. Our walk-in access areas and WMAs are seeing a ton of visitation from the public. So like I said, we've got lots of crews both in our outreach section on the walk-in access areas, but also in our habitat section on the WMAs, making sure that those facilities are ready for the public. We have in our outreach section, we've been really busy. Jody Anderson, who's with us tonight, coordinates our dedicated hunter projects and our volunteer projects. That was a real challenge at the beginning of the COVID issue, but she's been able to work with a lot of our staff, especially those in our waterfowl areas, to make sure that dedicated hunters and volunteers still have opportunities to do projects, get their service hours, and make sure that they have an opportunity to hunt this fall. Special thanks to Jody for helping to make that happen, as well as the employees who have been bending over backwards to make sure that those volunteers stay safe as well. We also have had some really good success in our social media traffic lately. Thanks to some exciting news in our fisheries. We stocked kokanee salmon at Lost Creek Reservoir and at Rockport Reservoir for the first times. Those are a really popular opportunity for anglers, and we're trying to increase that opportunity as many places as we can. And so we're excited to see those come on board. And we also did a second stocking event at East Canyon Reservoir for kokanee. We also had a Facebook post of a recent case where we cited 3 people in Summit County who had trespassed to gather shed antlers. And we saw more than 90,000 people who saw that post, and engagement was absolutely through the roof. So there were a lot of folks that didn't realize that they could lose their hunting privileges for up to 3 years for making that mistake. And so we feel like we got a lot done by with community engagement and education with that post especially. In the wildlife section, we're happy to be joined tonight by Sydney Lamb. She's listening in, but we recently hired Sydney Lamb to be our box elder biologist for our wildlife section. We're really excited to have Sydney. Some of you might already know her. She's been really busy working on research projects, especially up here in the cache, and she's going to be an exceptional addition to our section. And so Sydney, welcome aboard and welcome to the meeting tonight. Appreciate you listening in. We do have a bit of good news of the bighorn sheep that we released at Antelope Island from Montana. We're seeing that they're having lambs, so that's great news as well. Our wildlife biologists are really busy right now. One of the things they're doing is they're doing winter range habitat assessments throughout the region. And so they're looking for areas where we can improve conditions for big game herds during winter periods, and making some recommendations and working with our habitat section on future projects to help with overwinter survival. In the law enforcement section, they've been very busy gearing up for our aquatic invasive species interdiction efforts. That has been a really big lift statewide. A lot of folks in the division and around the state have been working really hard to make sure that that program is in place to protect our water bodies, but also to protect our staff from COVID. So we're starting to be up and running at Bear Lake, and we'll be up and running full speed here shortly. And as we reported last, Brooklyn Evans, she is a new conservation officer who will be starting here in June. She'll be replacing Crystal Tucker, who was promoted to work in the AIS program. We miss Crystal dearly, and we're also excited to see Brooklyn come aboard. She's going to be an awesome addition. So I think that pretty well wraps up my update, Mr. Chair. Unless there's questions from the RAC members, I'd be happy to try to answer them or get someone on the line that can.
This is Randy. Just a quick question for you. Any results on the sage grouse and sharp-tailed counts yet?
Yeah, we wrapped all those up, and I've got Jim on the line. The last time we talked, I think I've got a pretty good summary, but I'm guessing Jim's got a more up-to-date summary. So I'm going to defer to him just for accuracy.
Yeah, Jim Christensen, Regional Wildlife Manager. So we have wrapped up our counts for the year. We are in the process of collecting all that data to begin to analyze it. Initial analyzation of that data, though, is we're going to be slightly down on numbers again. But again, that's not looking at all the data yet. So.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, great, thank you.
And those results will be compiled with the statewide results, obviously. And this year for sage grouse statewide, we really weren't sure if we were going to see one more slight dip, like Jim mentioned for our data, at least preliminarily, or if we were going to start to see the level off and maybe even turn around in the cycle. But that natural cycle of up and down, we think we're probably at the bottom of the cycle for now, and if not this year, in the future years, hopefully on the way up. Any other questions from RAC members? I'm happy to help best I can.
Ben, this is Matt Clark. I have a question for you. Can you shed any light on where the division is in like their normal data recording process? Like, for example, the harvest surveys, tooth age data, that sort of thing. Are we going to be able to have that information by next year, or is that going to be significantly delayed?
No, I don't think we're going to see any delays. We've got, honestly, Matt, we've been, the wildlife section is no exception. We've been really productive, have kept up mostly with most of the demands. Jim, am I?
Yeah,
correct?
Ben, I can answer that a little better. We currently have all of last year's data collected. We have that prior to the making our hunt recommendations. And so, yeah, we've been able to accurately make recommendations based on those ages of harvested animals. And so, yeah, we did not see a lag in that information, and I don't foresee it for next year either. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get that information out to every hunter, with their harvest reports. But we do have that data.
It's been nice to see all of our sections just continue to clip and be productive. Just so impressed with the drive of our people to overcome all these barriers. So, anything else?
Yes, Ben, I have a question. So I guess we're echoing as we're in the same room right now, but has there been any, I know last month I asked a question, I don't believe Taylor's joined the call, but is there any other information concerning possible introducing more sheep to Antelope Island this year? Has there been any progress made at all, or any news on that?
I can answer to that one again too, Mr. Chairman. We are going to look at the possibility of reintroducing some more this fall. We will be doing some intense pre-capture screening, but that is in our current work plan for next year, next winter.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's one of the things we work on, throughout the winter and into the spring months is our work plan. And we kind of set aside and identify all of the tasks the major tasks that we're going to complete within each of our sections. So that's been an ongoing conversation. So appreciate the update from Jim and the question from you, Mr. Chair. There's no other questions. We can move on.
Okay, thank you, Ben, for that update, and for Jim and everyone that participated in that, and for the questions. So we will now go to our next item number 5 on our agenda, which is the Upland Game and Turkey Guidebook and Rule Recommendations. I hope that everyone had the opportunity to view online the presentations that Heather did. At this time, I'll first turn the time over to Ben to give us the public a survey on the public just the public input that they gave at this time. Ben, would you please share that with us?
Yes, sir. So for all of the survey respondents, we had just over 71% that supported the proposal, 28.5% approximately that opposed, and 0% that were neutral.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'll turn some time over to RAC members to ask questions. I believe Heather is ready and available for any questions that members of the RAC have at this time concerning the Upland Game and Turkey Guidebook and rule recommendations. Again, this is time for questions only.
This is Emily.
We'll start with Emily first and then Randy after that.
Okay, I actually have two questions. So the first one is, what research is the division basing the incorporation of brood translocations on for sage grouse? And then the follow-up to that is, are you guys, I'm assuming you are, but are you planning on conducting monitoring to see if that method is effective in Utah?
Yeah, we've actually looked at some research that was done in other states with this, and I've spoken extensively with one of the professors at USU that conducted that research. So it does show that they have increased fidelity to the release sites, and we would plan to do some monitoring if possible. Yeah.
Do you
That's
remember
definitely something that we're looking at. So we just want to be able to have that as an option. Sorry, will you say that again?
I was asking, do you remember the name of the researcher? And if not, myself or Renee will follow up with you after this.
Dave Dahlgren.
Not from USU, the research that it was based on.
So that he was the one that conducted the research in the other states. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I believe Randy had a question.
Yeah, Heather, glad to have you here. So you're excited to talk with you. Just in my wheelhouse, be a little logical on it, I'm hoping. One follow-up on the sage grouse, and Emily actually took most of the questions I had there, but one of the comments was not trapping just adults, but trapping the chicks as well. Do you know from the information that was passed on to you how successful that is as far as translocating chicks?
I believe it's very successful. I can forward you guys the study that was done if you'd prefer to do that. So just so that you can look it over. But yeah, it was a high success rate of translocating the chicks. So.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to get that. That would be fantastic. Well, I have a couple of questions. You're recommending moving back the ptarmigan hunt. I believe it's a week and a half, something like that, to give the birds a chance to disperse more. Is there a concern that too many birds are being taken right now, or what's driving that decision?
So the concern is that because they ptarmigan nest so much later than a lot of other upland game species, that we're not giving quite enough time for brood breakup to occur. And because so much can change with chicks growing and becoming more independent in just a week's time, we thought that it would be best to move the season from the last Saturday in August to the 1st of September. So just to give them a little bit more time to allow that brood breakup to occur, because if hunters are going out and they believe they're seeing a covey and they try to shoot what they think is the male as the largest bird, they might in fact be harvesting that brood hen instead.
Okay. All right. And then other question on your proposal to close WMAs. I believe it was 3 different WMAs. Can you give some specific examples on why or when you would do that?
Sure. So in the past, we've asked for the Annabelle and Pavant WMAs to be closed for our organized youth pheasant hunts. And we've noticed that some of these other issues, we also had the Ogden Bay WMA come up as with an organized pheasant hunt last year. And because they didn't get in for the closure within that 3-year guidebook cycle, they had some issues with other members of the public coming on and trying to harvest birds while they were trying to conduct that organized hunt. So we just thought that it would be nice to give us maybe a little bit of support in order to close those WMAs when we do have events like this come up, so that we can make sure that we're giving those participants the highest quality event possible.
Okay, so mainly youth hunts. This is not for private clubs or anything like that. It's just DWR events, correct?
Yes, yeah, DWR and co-sponsored. So with all of these organized pheasant hunts so far, SFW is purchasing the birds for us. So these are mostly co-sponsored events as well.
Okay. And last question, and I'm sure I'll end up having some comments, but do you guys have a chance to review the public comments that are submitted on these proposals?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see the one from the Pheasants Forever on their suggestions for the handling the put and take hunts on the WMAs?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So
is there? I think that's a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to offer our opinion because I assume that's what you're getting at, but you can go first.
No, that was just it. I think it's a fantastic. I really like the way Idaho runs it, and this is just their variation on it. So I'm just curious about you guys' thought, and if there's any possibility of looking at doing something like that.
So the division feels that that would create a substantial barrier to the R3 mission by providing people with an extra step that they have to take in order to go hunt certain WMAs. So I can see where, where a lot of thought and everything has gone into that. We really appreciate new ideas, of course, but we just feel like it's such a big barrier to add that extra fee attached to specific WMAs. And then also, we don't know how well we'd be able to enforce it to be able to have people at those WMAs constantly making sure that people have their punch passes and everything.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Heather, I also have a question. I had the opportunity to listen into last night's discussion and also regarding the Pheasants Forever comments. It sounded to me like a kind of a discrepancy between how much Utah is paying per bird and what the numbers that Pheasants Forever provided as opposed to what was said last night. Do you have any more information on that maybe to help us clear up what it is that how much Utah actually is paying for rooster and also checker?
For checker, yeah, no problem. So we were in a contract with our growers that provide both pen-reared checkers and pheasants for 5 years, and we are in the middle of that 5th year right now. So each pheasant is $15.25 a piece, and each checker is $9.25 a piece. So I think that maybe if there was some misconstruing the data a little bit, then maybe those numbers seemed a little bit artificially high.
Thank you.
So if that's being the case, and I never thought about asking about the dollar amount, what does Utah pay on a typical year for pheasants and checkers that are released?
That's been the contract that we've had for the last 5 years. So that amount has remained stagnant per bird.
So is it $186,000 per year? Is that number accurate?
We're allotted $200,000 a year to spend. In the past, we have had some contracts with other growers that maybe costed less. So that's why there's a discrepancy of the amount per year that has been used. But this past year, we used a little bit more money because we want to use our full budget that we have available to us to provide that opportunity for people. So just because we're using more of the budget doesn't mean that the bird prices themselves haven't increased at all. It's just that we're putting more birds out there on the landscape.
Does anyone else have any other questions? And perhaps I'd invite the RAC to, to recall some of the comments that received from public to share some of those at this time, if you could as well. Okay, I've got one. I believe we all received a letter from SFW concerning the extending the youth turkey hunt to 1 week as opposed to the 3 days. Is that something that could be accomplished and the division feels like, if directed, could do? And what would be some of the, I guess, pros and cons of that?
Sure. So some of the things that we've noticed with that, I mean, biologically, they're still being hunted from the second Saturday in April until the end of May. So biologically, there's not a huge difference there. But with taking that first week of the general season hunt, that may create some issues for the general season hunters, because that's generally the highest amount of harvest success in that first week. And birds tend to get more and more quiet throughout the month of May. So taking that first week off of that general season hunt may be an issue for sportsmen.
If the limited entry, with that, if the limited entry hunt was to be moved forward at all, is that a possibility? So you'd still have the limited entry would move forward just a little bit, and perhaps take, 3 days from the limited entry, or at least not take away, but add a little bit, and perhaps affect both of them. Is that a possibility, or what is the reason for the date of the opener of the limited entry?
The reason for that opener is that we're trying to allow 60 to 70% of breeding to occur before harvest really kicks in. So it's because we're worried about the interruption of the breeding patterns. Also, there may be an increased likelihood of incidental take of hens. And if hens are nesting during that time, if they've just initiated a nest, they're more likely to, if they're going to be disturbed, they might leave and abandon that nest. So we really try not to open up to a lot of hunters earlier than that second Saturday in April.
This is Emily again. I'm going to ask a question on behalf of the National Wild Turkey Federation based on their comments. What is the reason for adding air guns to the fall hunt for turkeys, and was this decision made using any relevant data for the state?
So the reason behind the air guns is that it's, first of all, only allowed in the, if it passes, it would only be allowed for the fall season, and for rabbits and hares, which are all upland game that are currently harvested with rifles. So those would be the only conditions in which air guns would be allowed. And the reason for that is to allow another weapon type and increase opportunity for people. And for the fall hunts, since the goal of those hunts is to decrease populations, getting more opportunity is just a benefit to trying to make those hunts as successful as possible. So we did do research online and with other states and talked to other states on what they do, and we looked into different things that would be amenable to the minimum requirements to make sure that the guns would be lethal.
Thank you, Heather.
Heather, forgive me if it's in there and I missed it in the presentation, but is there any type of restrictions as to what air guns can be used? For instance, Red Ryder 1 pump that you buy at Walmart, as opposed to some of the compressed air. Now I've hunted with an air rifle, and some of those are very lethal, but then I've also seen others that are not. Is there something that states what type of air gun can be used?
Yes, and I apologize, that was not the presentation. It's in the RAC packet. So I can just list a few of those things from the RAC packet really quick. The pre-charged pneumatic air rifle means a rifle that fires a single projectile with compressed air released from a chamber built into the rifle and pressurized at 2,000 to 3,000 PSI from an external high compression device or source such as hand pump, compressor, or scuba tank. So also a pre-charged pneumatic air rifle firing a single broadhead tipped bolt or arrow or pellet or slug during the fall turkey season that is at least a 22 caliber or larger and weighs 18 grains or more and is fired at a velocity to produce at least 30 foot-pounds of pressure of energy at the muzzle. So that's what's listed in our RAC packet as far as those minimum requirements.
Thank you. I think that kind of helps. You know, someone that's thinking of the little Walmart gun. It's hard to put one of those big toms down with a shotgun, let alone a Red Ryder BB gun.
Even if it has a compass in the stock, right?
Heather, I promise this is my last question. Turkeys, again, one observation that the Turkey Federation brought out, and I'm glad other people are talking about their recommendations, is there any consideration to having the rimfire as a youth-only method of hunting? I personally know and have heard a few, to me, horror stories about people just, you know, adults being very aggressive with the rimfires. I understand that the fall hunt is used for depredation and, you know, we want birds taken, but I'm not certain that's necessarily the best direction with adults on the rimfire. Just whatever thoughts or conversations you folks have had around that.
So we feel that it would be really hard enforcement-wise to try to eliminate an age group from a certain weapon type, since that doesn't occur in any other of our recommendations. So at this point, there's no interest from the division to move forward with trying to restrict certain ages from certain different kinds of weapons. But and as you said, we just really want to reduce populations in those fall hunt areas because those are where we're receiving a lot of turkey human conflicts. And we're trying our best to ameliorate that so that we can continue to grow turkeys in other places of the state and have those tools for those private landowners to keep tolerance levels up.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is Matt Clark speaking. I have a question. I'm a falconer, and in the falconry community, there is a concern about using air guns as they are primarily lead pellet based for non-lethal injection of these pellets into animals that are primary prey species for raptors. Has there been any consideration on the potential impacts of this air gun rule on the raptor populations for non-lethal hits on these prey animals?
I think that we've tried so hard to make these minimum recommendations so that they would be lethal so that hasn't been something that we've visited very much, but we can definitely look into that and take that into consideration. But we are hoping that with our minimum requirements, they will be lethal.
Do we have any more questions from members of RAC before we move to the comment section? Okay, if not, we'll now open up to comments from members of the RAC. If anyone would like to make any comments concerning the Upland Game and Turkey Guidebook, now is your time.
Again, this is Matt Clark speaking. I'm opposed to the air rifle amendment to the rules primarily for lead concerns in the environment.
This is Randy Hutchison. Just a couple just a couple quick points. I know it wasn't proposed, so I was just saving it for my comment section. I would recommend that the division really look at pushing the checker season back to October the 15th. That will be more in line with the states around us, and using the same logic that is used with the ptarmigan. The birds are still grouped up in their family groups. The later we push it back, the more those birds will disperse and get away from water sources. So I think that would be a very good thing for the division to look at. The other thing, just an observation on the surveys, hunter data that's been gathered on the turkey hunts. I think that the standards that we're setting are too low. You know, we've set standards for what qualifies as triggers and makes a successful hunt. For example, you're looking for a 3-year average of at or below 4 for crowded conditions. Well, it's only on a scale of 1 to 5. A 4 is shooting, that's a pretty low bar. You know, by the time we're at a 4, people are going to be very unhappy. The same being on the hunter satisfaction. Our bar needs to be 2 or greater. Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, that's an extremely low goal that we're setting. I think we could adjust those goals for our standards, for our triggers, so that we can be more proactive on our hunts. Thank you.
This is Emily.
Oh, go ahead, Emily. Go ahead.
I beat ya. I have 2 comments. So the first is just a follow-up to monitoring for the brood translocations. It didn't sound like that was a definitive, so just hoping that it does occur, especially since it might not be as effective for every sage grouse population across the state. I'll be curious to see what that looks like. And then the other comment is just in regard to the sharp-tail and the greater sage grouse being BLM sensitive species, and that they are obviously being hunted, but the BLM defers to the division on population management of both of these species.
Hey, Heather, if I could add to the sage grouse monitoring question, Emily, you might be already be familiar, but we invested as a state of Utah collectively a lot of money into monitoring the sheeprock translocations. Just as an example, we also have done a lot of translocations in the Parker Mountains, using sources from other SGMAs. But at the same time, there's a really robust range-wide, west-wide coordination amongst researchers and managers through the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and the Sagebrush Executive Oversight Committee, which you might be familiar with as well. But there's a lot of research going on around translocations and whether the right life stage to translocate, whether artificial insemination can be successful. I know that there's large scale efforts in Wyoming and Utah and I believe Colorado. And so those researchers are actively comparing notes. And I think what Heather was referring to was the Dr. Dahlgren at Utah State is a part of that consortium of researchers that are trying to learn best practices from each of those efforts and applying them in real time. And in every instance where we've been able to, we've followed up translocations with backpacks, GPS transmitters on birds to ensure survival and to learn as much as we possibly can. I'm guessing Heather's reluctant to commit for sure that we will be monitoring because she doesn't know for sure if we have money to do that or not. It's kind of above our pay grade, but that's always our goal, is to be able to monitor survival the best we possibly can and to learn as much as we can from translocations so that we can ensure the best survival possible moving forward.
Thanks, Ben. I am aware, but it's also good to hear all that stuff again.
Hey, Emily, I did just want to mention really quickly that we do talk extensively with BLM, like you were mentioning, that the BLM defers to us for management, but we do talk about all of this data with them extensively. So we communicate a lot.
So I guess I'll follow up. I'm the BLM biologist for the Salt Lake field office. And then Renee, that comment was coming directly from Renee from our sage grouse biologist.
Okay, I had a couple comments concerning the I used to call them WMA. I don't know if they're walk-in WIA or what you call them now, but as part of being able to close them, I was just Ben is breaking things in his office. I apologize for that crash in the background. But anyway, I participated in one of the youth hunts where we were helping release pheasants on the Ogden WMA, and it's debatable whether these, while we were releasing birds for this youth hunt, the youth hunt was set to begin at 8:30, and at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, we were out releasing birds. And once again, it's debatable whether these gentlemen were aware of what we were about to do, or if they just happened to stumble and be the luckiest guys you've ever heard of. Just as fast as we could release the birds, went over the other ditch side, and there were a couple of guys there waiting and had the pheasant hunt of their life that morning as we released them. And so I think being able to close it, again, to be able to help give youth an opportunity to hunt before adults hammered all those birds that were being released would be a good thing. And then the other thing, I understand Matt's concerns about their air rifles and the lead, but the same thing I believe would probably apply to those who to the shot that they're using during the regular hunt, as well as sometimes people aren't aware of what it takes, don't realize just how strong those birds are and the size of shot and what they use to try to take them. I would think would probably cause the same issues, but that'd be a comment. But I do think it definitely, I can understand the concern about that. And those are just some of the comments that I had. Do we have any other comments from members of the RAC concerning this particular topic? If there are no other comments, again, I invite you to recall some of the comments and input that we received from the public. If the RAC members have no other comments for Heather at this time, I would entertain a motion.
This is Randy. I would motion to accept the proposal as presented.
Okay, I have a motion from Randy Hutchinson to accept the presentation or accept the division's proposal as presented. Do we have a second?
This is Paul. Second.
Okay, I have a second from Paul Chase. Is there any discussion on the motion that's been made? If not at this time, I'll call for a vote. I'll begin with Ryan Brown. Please indicate yes or no on your vote to make it easier.
Yes.
Paul Chase.
Yes.
Junior Goring.
Yes.
Christopher Hogstrom.
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson.
Yes.
Emily Jensko.
Yes.
Matt Clark.
No.
Mike Lauder.
Yes.
Kevin McLeod.
Yes.
Darren Perry.
Yes.
Kristen Purdy.
Yes.
And Casey Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The motion passes with 11 in favor and 1 opposed, the 1 opposed being Matt Clark. Matt, would you like, for my notes, the reason for the vote against this?
Yes, thank you. My primary concern is still potential lead contamination, but secondarily, I don't feel like we addressed the sportsman's for fish and wildlife concerns with the turkey hunt.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. We have, now that that has passed, we will now move to our next agenda item. That is agenda item number 6, the migratory upland game recommendations and Swan Rule Amendments. Once again, I hope that every RAC member had the opportunity to watch the presentation that was offered by Blair Stringham. He is now available for questions, but first we'll hear from Ben, if he could give us an update on public input.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had almost 86% in support of the proposal. Just over 14% were neutral and 0% opposed.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Okay, we now have Blair, who is online and available for questions. Any RAC members who have questions concerning the migratory upland game recommendations at this time, is open for questions. Not all at once, please. Blair's getting off easy tonight. If there are no questions for him, I'll now open to comments. Are there any comments concerning this agenda item? Blair, is there anything that you'd like to clarify to? Oh, Kevin, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, just real quick, I just want to say how much I appreciate their consideration in extending the Sandhill crane season for Box Elder County. I think that was a good move.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Blair, is there anything that you'd like to share with us at this time? Is there anything that maybe any other information that would be available to us?
I don't think so. I think everything we include in the RAC packet would cover everything for the migratory upland birds, as well as for the rule change for the swan tagging.
Okay. Thank you very much. If there's no comments from RAC members at this time, I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I would make a motion that we accept the presentation or the recommendations as presented.
So I have a motion from Kevin McLeod to accept the presentation as presented. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yep.
Okay, I have a second from Matt Clark. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead now and do a roll call vote. I'll begin with Ryan Brown.
Yes.
Paul Chase.
Yes.
Junior Goring.
Yes.
Junior, your voice still awful high. All right. Christopher Hogstrom.
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson.
Yes.
Emily Jensko.
Yes.
Matt Clark.
Yes.
Mike Lauder.
Yes.
Kevin McLeod.
Yes.
Darren Perry.
Yeah.
Kristen Purdy.
Yes.
And Casey Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, motion to accept the migratory upland game recommendations and Swan Rule Amendments as presented passes unanimously. Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 7.
Mr. Chair, could I just clarify something for the record? In case anybody hasn't noticed, but Jody Anderson is in touch with is it Junior Goring.
Yes.
He's struggling with technology, and so they are in communication over the phone, and so she's registering his vote on his behalf. So just wanted to make that note for the record. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I was aware of that. I guess for those watching, that may be confusing to me. Jody doesn't sound like a rancher from Box Elder County, does she? Or I guess she could sound that. Take that from the nose. There are women ranchers from Box Elder County, and they do a wonderful job as well. Let's go ahead and go to agenda item number 7, AIS Rule Amendments. This time we have Bruce Johnson, who is available, but we'll first hear from Ben, who can give us the public input on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the record, I know Jody Anderson well, and she could hang with just about any rancher in any county. She's a tough cookie herself. We've got we had just over 57% in support of this proposal. Almost 43% were neutral, and 0 were in opposition.
Okay, thank you, Ben, for that. For members of the RAC, does anyone have any questions at this time? Having watched the presentation, does anyone have any questions for Bruce?
Chair, I have a question.
Kevin.
Just wondering, Bruce, are there any new suspected waters in Utah this year?
No.
Great, thank you.
Bruce, I have a quick question for you. And maybe this is not happening, but when someone is when a boat is on Lake Powell, for instance, at Bullfrog Marina, and the boat is taken out of the water for maintenance, the houseboat comes out of the water, is out for, less than a day or a day, and then put back in. I believe this happened with personal experience, we were required to go and clean the boat, go through all the effort, wait to have it cleaned, inspected, and then put back in. What would be the reason for that, having known that the boat has already been in affected water, came out for a few hours, and then was just to go right back in? It felt like it was a lot of work that wasn't accomplishing anything, but I may be wrong, and I'm just curious on the reason for that.
I'm curious too, when did this occur?
This would have been not this year, but the following year, 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yes.
All I'm aware of is those houseboats that are going up to those places in Tickaboo offshore GMB. They're being cleaned by those places so they can do the maintenance on them and clear those systems. That's my understanding. If they're going back to that water, we don't require that wait time or anything because they're returning back to that water.
Maybe a question I have for the place that was clean, maybe they needed to make some money off us to clean the boat before we put it back in there then, because we were told it was required, but they saw us coming, it sounds like.
That's possible. I don't know. I'd have to talk with them to see maybe what some of their protocols are, but that is my understanding at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Are there any other questions? All right, if we have no more questions, we'll now go to comments. And I'd like to be the first to comment that I'd say thanks for the work that you guys are doing towards that. I have a picture on my phone I wish I could show of exactly what they've done to the bottom of a houseboat. It's a, when I first heard about these years ago, I never dreamed it would get to this point. I didn't think that it was really that big of an issue till I saw the bottom of our boat when we took it out of there, and it was quite amazing of just what they do. And I understand the precaution being, or the steps that are being put forward to try to save other lakes from, falling prey to these invasive mussels, because they indeed cause a lot of havoc. And so thanks for all the work with that. And I think, the classes that you're requiring, everything that you're trying to do, I think is helping educate people like myself, who in the beginning didn't foresee just what a problem they were.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate hearing that, and I will let all of our staff know it. We owe all of the success to our folks on the ground, all those technicians that are doing all the hard work, and our interdiction specialists that are overseeing that. Thank you. I will let them know that.
Are there any other comments from members of the RAC at this time? Okay, if we have no other questions this time, or no other comments, I'd entertain a motion.
This is Matt Clark to make a motion to accept the rule as presented.
I have a motion from Matt to accept the rule as presented. Can we get a second?
This is Randy. I'll second it.
So the motion to accept the rule as presented has been seconded by Randy. Is there any comments or questions concerning this motion? If not, at this time, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. Begin with Ryan Brown.
Yes.
Paul Chase.
Yes.
Junior Goring.
Yes.
Christopher Hogstrom.
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson.
Yes.
Emily Jenspo.
Yes.
Matt Clark.
Yes.
Mike Lauder.
Yes.
Kevin McLeod.
Yes.
Darren Perry.
Yes.
Tristan Purdy.
Yes.
And Casey Snyder.
Yes.
Right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We will now go to agenda item number 8, which is to do with the walk-in access rule amendments that was presented by Bryan Christensen, and he is available to hear questions and comments. We'll first hear from Ben to, let us know what the public input was on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had over 71% in support of the proposal. 14% and some change were neutral, and 14% and some change opposed.
Thank you, Ben. At this time, we have Bryan Christensen, who's the volunteer service coordinator, available. Members of the RAC, are there any questions for Ben for Bryan at this time?
Yeah, Bryan, this is Randy. I have a couple questions for you. Yeah. Currently, I think it was listed that there's 92,000 acres in the program. First part of the question is that the level that you're looking at? Or are we looking to expand or reduce the program? What's the future?
Okay, that's a great question. The acreage we've got now, I'm not sure we have a goal to increase at the moment until we've gone through and reviewed every single property that we have and kind of evaluate which ones are really productive, which ones are being utilized. And once we have a really good handle on that, then I think we'll really look at more expansion. That being said, we're always looking for good opportunities to enroll. We do have some funding that's underutilized at the moment, and as an example, the northern region now has some communications with some landowners to do as many as 4 or 5 more properties. We're just waiting out a little bit of time to figure out what is the right time and opportunity to start those up if we want to. So we'll see some expansion, but our current goal is really more just refining what we've got, making sure it's quality stuff before we move forward with more.
Okay. And a follow-up on that, is there, and I believe you mentioned it in your presentation, or maybe I got it when I jumped online to check some things. Is there a focus or emphasis on trying to get some property that opens up landlocked areas? Because in northern Utah, there's a lot of landlocked property that public hunters can't get to.
Yeah, and part of this recommendation we have clarifies that a little bit more to where we would, we do this now in a few of our walk-in access properties, but specifically if we can find a landowner that will just basically give us a corridor towards a public land that is landlocked, we actually can compensate that landowner based on that acreage that gets opened up. And so it's definitely part of this program to open those types of areas, and we do have some hopes that this will actually expand that.
Okay, and you also mentioned in your proposal your this boxes do fall into disrepair, no one uses them. But how are you actually going to track that? You said like, hey, we're going to develop a new method for tracking to see if these properties are used. Well, what is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. When these boxes were first built and this program put in place, I'm not even sure anybody had a smartphone. So just that alone, we have technological options to us that we've never even tried to use with walk-in access. I'm not sure all of our properties have cell service on those sites, but we want to at least have the opportunity to expand into a more technological approach, or maybe just a different way of finding out, what the usage is. And I give maybe an example. I'm not sure we'll go this route, but for waterfowl or migratory bird hunters, there's a HIP number that they have to obtain, and part of that HIP process is to report how many birds and some different figures that is real simple, but gets some pretty good solid data that can be used from year to year. And our walk-in boxes now, they collect hornets' nests. The papers go flying all over the place, and sometimes they get used, sometimes they don't. It's so mixed that we don't gather any real reliable data from those walk-in registration boxes that we can use with confidence. So the hope with this recommendation is just to pull it out of the rule that requires us to use those boxes, but we are certainly going to use some different methods and innovations to be able to evaluate the usage of those properties, and also kind of learn how much the public likes those, if they think they're quality and stuff like that. And I'll be looking towards other states specifically on how they do it, and see what best methods are being used now that we have not just tried before.
Okay, great. One last question. And if you don't know the information on this, that's fine, but I would appreciate it if you'd track it down and let me know.
I got my pen handy so I can make a note.
There's a walk-in access in northern Utah that I know for a fact has been chained off for 2 years, the access road to it. Due to no fault of the people that own the walk-in access area. It's just another landowner illegally chaining this road. Couple issues is, one, the state's throwing away money and hunters aren't having an opportunity to hunt on that property. And just so you know, it's the L. Douglas walk-in access area north of Powell Valley. So if you're not familiar with that situation, I understand that. But if you could track that down, it just makes my head explode every time I drive past it.
Okay. What I can do is we can look into anytime anybody has a concern about walk-in access is not being available, then we just need to know about it. We can go find out. Basically, we just we'll go see what there is, and hopefully discover that there's still access there, and we can also point out on our webpage and our map system the best way in. Maybe it's not that particular road. Maybe there's another one that can get to that property. We'll go discover that stuff. So I've made a note, and I'll visit with our coordinator there in the northern region and see what we can find out.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Bryan at this time?
This is Matt Clark speaking. I do have a question. I have a concern primarily about losing the data from the sign-in boxes. And I'm speaking again as a falconer. I read all of the entries in those sign-in boxes and decide when to go where I can fly my birds and not have them get shot at. It tends to be I go during the week and they're hit heavily by gun hunters on the weekends. What kind of replacement are we going to have for that data to know usage on individual WI?
Okay, that's also another good question. I don't know that there's going to be one statewide answer at the moment. I'm fairly new in this position and learning a lot about the program. I've hunted walk-in access areas for years and had that opportunity. But what we do know is that many of the boxes, and I won't say it's all of them, but many of them are either not being used the way they're supposed to, where hunters access it and sign in, or we're just not getting the information because the papers are gone or for some other strange reason. So we don't feel like it's currently reliable in all of the boxes statewide. There are a few that are being used very well, and we may opt to continue to use those boxes on where they are working. Removing the portion that we have out of the rule doesn't mean we can't do that, but it makes it so that we don't have to have that as our only way of doing things. We're certainly going to try to use the best method that we find to get that data. I'll give you one other kind of example. One of the heavily used boxes in the northern region we've recently discovered is actually full of names from geocachers. They somehow mistaken the registration boxes. That's where they go and they find, and geocaching is a whole lot of fun if you haven't done it. But it ended up filling our registration sheets with folks that are just looking for a geocache and not actually hunting and fishing. And so we're just seeing maybe just not the best use of some of these older methods, and hopefully the future will present some better opportunities for us. Hopefully that helps you.
So do you have a plan currently on how you're going to try to replace that data?
I'm discussing with the regional specialists that handle the walk-in access properties some different types of methods. We don't have anything pinned down at the moment. So as of now, the rule change doesn't really affect. We're not gonna, if this passes, we're not gonna go out tomorrow and take all the boxes out. They just won't be gone. But as we create new leases and renew these properties through our system, that's when we'll really be implementing things. And so you won't see a whole lot of change initially. And that buys us a little bit of time to see what we think the best methods are going to be. And then it gives me some time to also look at other states as well and what they're doing. Initially, what I'd like to say is I think the more favorable options we've discussed so far would be a similar system like we do with HIP and the HIP number.
Thank you. I guess I'd just like to make the point that as you're considering this, there are types of hunting that are not necessarily compatible from a safety standpoint. And falconers in particular go to great lengths to try to occupy places when gun hunters are not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make. I'm always open to those different kinds of perspectives and suggestions. If we assume that the hunters that go there are actually signing in, then that makes a lot of sense to have those registration boxes. And if they're not, whether it's because they're not sure they're supposed to do it or whatever other reason, then you could end up being surprised anyway. But yeah, I'll be sensitive to that perspective and that suggestion that we find ways to be able to help landowners and the public know who's on the land, on the landscape.
Matt, Brian, your one of your answers triggered a memory cell. Some of the feedback that came in was you very specifically said we're going to change it to make certain that it's listed that these properties are only for hunting, fishing. I can't remember. It seems there was a third one. I could be wrong.
It's trapping.
Trapping. That's it. Thank you. A couple comments came in, I believe, asking about, well, what about someone's hiking, doing some scouting in advance, or walking through to get to some public land on the other side? Is that going to be an issue with that change in wording?
A little of everything that you've just said. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And was that Randy that I'm
Yes.
answering? Okay. There's a lot of people on the grid right now, so I want to make sure I know who I'm talking to. So Randy, there's a misconception with walk-in access properties right now, and I'll admit, as a walk-in access hunter, that until I had this position, I also didn't know that our leases with these private landowners are specifically for fishing, hunting, and trapping, and they always have been. As public users of these properties, we've gotten a little bit casual and allowed ourselves to go hiking and recreating. Some of these properties have allowed camping, some allow bird watching, and under our agreement, and where it really stems from is the hunting properties are funded by federal money. It's a federal grant that we get that says that we'll use that money to open these properties for hunting and trapping. And when we don't include that money is going to be used for bird watching or camping or other recreational types, we're kind of in violation of the use of that money. And that money is only given to us for the purpose of hunting and trapping through that specific federal grant. So as a division, we don't really have the ability to authorize anything but those on walk-in access properties. The rule clarifications that I'm putting out there make that more clear, so that we can be better communicators with the public as well. That's all we're leasing these properties from. Now the landowners, we have several that are very willing to open up their lands to other uses, and hiking or whatever else is okay with them. But there are others that are not, and that want us to keep very strict rules. So this brings it back to what we're really truly allowed to do, versus what has just kind of grown into the walk-in access culture.
Okay, well, and actually that's what I didn't know that about the federal funding, that it was tied to that. But so if someone's hiking, so scouting probably wouldn't fall into that category, and I can appreciate that. What about if you're, to tie it into my earlier question about using these walk-in access to gain access to landlocked property? Does that qualify? I'm walking through it to get to the other property to hunt. Is that going to be a problem?
No, if it passes as we've written it, I do actually have a section in there that makes it clear to the landowners that if they have a walk-in access lease with us, and let's suppose there's a piece of public ground on the opposite side, and somebody wants to walk through the walk-in access to go bird hunting or something on that public ground. Walk-in access will be a throughway. It'll be a corridor. It will become a passageway for access to those public grounds, or maybe it's private ground that person has permission to access, but they want to get to it from the walk-in access area, and that'll be okay through this new language. many of our walk-in access areas now that are butted up against public grounds already consider that as just part of the thing. So I don't see too many surprises there. We're not going to reduce any access issues.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Brian, if one of those, if you guys are, if the division is familiar with a landowner that is okay with bird watching or those other activities outside of hunting, would it be, is there a way to make it known so, you know, people are familiar with that? Which one, this particular area is okay with that and another one is not?
Yeah, that's something that we're still trying to figure out a little bit as we work with our landowners and the legal side of what we're doing. Because really on our division's webpage, you know, every walk-in access property has a map and it says, here's what you can do on this property. Because even hunting in general, not every property is going to be available to hunt every type of species. They may just be having a lease with us to hunt big game or just for waterfowl or something like that. So there's still some restrictions and some you know, things that may be limited on each of these private lands. So we don't really have, because we don't really have the authority in these leases to allow the public to go onto those lands and hike and bird watch and whatever else, I'm a little hesitant to put it there. I think I'd be more inclined to put on our webpage that if you're doing anything but these activities, you should contact the landowner. Now, that being said, if the landowner is really okay with it and wants us to publish on our webpage that there are other things that they can do, maybe we just create a disclosure that says the landowner is okay with these type of things. But I want to have some separation so that people understand that our leases are really only and have only been for hunting, fishing, and trapping purposes, and anything besides that, we don't really have the right to authorize permission for, even though there are many properties where they're almost more like public parks. They get used so heavily, and we've got some great landowners that have just been very patient with that and very open to allowing people on their land for a variety of reasons. I'm just trying to bring ours back to what it is that we can allow through our agency and what we really can't.
Well, I think this comes back to my concern that I voiced earlier, is that I have a feeling that people want to know how these properties are being used, so they have some expectation of what they're going to see when they get there.
Yeah. Bottom line with the hunting, fishing, and trapping part, though, although the language is more clear, we're not taking away anything that we didn't have the right to authorize anyway. So the hunting, fishing, and trapping isn't going away. We just have maybe been, I don't know if lax is the right word, but not as clear that some of those other types and the agreements that we make with these landowners. So I don't imagine too many of them are going to change the way they allow their properties to be used.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the point that I'd like to still have that usage data available, however imperfect it might.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Brian before we move to comments? Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and move to comments. And I appreciated what some of the questions that Matt brought up, and I would say I would invite RAC members to kind of think of some of the things that he brought up. That makes a lot of sense to be able to, if someone is able to go when they arrived there and physically write in the logbook, I was there for, you know, whatever reason, know when they're there. I would hope that when someone is able to do it electronically, sign in or whatever, that the public would also have a little bit of access to that, because I can understand how there could be conflict with a falconer, you know, and accidents could happen, you know, as someone was trying to take a bird or anything else, and the falcon were to come in. And so I think Matt brings up some pretty good points, and I would, as motions are being made, that might be something to entertain Matt to invite the division to perhaps look in, you know, make that stuff available or find ways to make that public information. I think that's a great idea. The other comment that I have is I'm very grateful that landowners are willing to let us go onto their property and to have that access. And so I would hope that as a public that all of us recognize that, and we wouldn't do anything to cause there to be any bad blood or have experiences where one landowner may discuss with another potential landowner that, hey, this didn't work out very well for me, or I didn't like to do it, and it might take away future opportunities. So I would hope that public hunters in general will be very conscientious to the landowners and appreciate the access they're receiving, and you know, follow the rules and do all that you can so that, you know, others may realize that what a good thing it is, and it would open up more land. So I appreciate all those involved that are helping to get more access onto private ground. So thanks, Brian, and all those who are negotiating and working to make those things happen. Thank you. Do we have any other comments from members of the RAC? Excuse me, one thing I wanted to mention is that I believe Casey Snyder, for the record, we see that he logged off, so he had to leave. So I wanted to let everyone know that Casey has left the meeting, and so when it comes time to vote, that he will not be present for that. So anyway, back to
Mr. Chair. I think Jody has made a note in the record as well as to when he left, so that the minutes can track on that. Thanks.
This is Randy. I'll just make a quick comment, just to follow up some of the things that I'd asked about. So Brian, as you go through and you really evaluate all these properties, I'm really pleased to hear you're saying that, so that we can weed out the ones and reinforce, weed out the poor ones, and reinforce the good ones. And like I said, I really hope there's a focus on using these properties to open up the public land that we can't get to. The comment I'll make an observation on is Utah, and I'm glad you're doing this, but Utah has an extremely small amount of land in it compared to our neighboring states. 82,000 sounds like a lot of land, but comparatively, it's relatively small. So I'd hope that we can expand it into very useful, productive lands after you get done taking an inventory of all your properties. Thanks for your work.
You're welcome. Mr. Chair, can I respond to that real quick?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that comment. One of the neat things that I have in my job now is that several of the regional staff that work with walking access are fairly new to their jobs as well, and they're quite excited. They're really good at what they do, and they're going out and meeting with all these different landowners, and they're just doing a great job. And so we're excited to go through this and kind of fix the rule and just do the best we can at making this a more successful program, you know, statewide. And we do have hopes that it will expand like our neighboring states, and we've even had some discussions about requesting for additional grant money in the future to help support this program. So it's on the horizon. As soon as we have a really good feel of what we've got currently and where we can improve, then we'll start looking at that. But I am excited to say that we are signing up some new properties here in the near future that will open up some really neat stuff, some wetlands and some other places that we just haven't had open before. And so there's some expansion. It just may take us a little bit to get there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments? If not, I would invite the RAC to consider some of the questions and comments that have been made and perhaps I would entertain a motion be made at this time.
Yeah, this is Matt Clark speaking. I would make a motion to accept the presentation as presented with the caveat that we do not completely some sort of informational user day data.
Okay, there's a little bit of a hiccup in that, so to make sure, I want to clarify that again. So accept as presented with caveat of providing, would you say providing public information, or make public the information of the usage of the land, or what would be a good way to?
Just, I mean, some sort of user day. I mean, it could be a graph on the map, just like when are people going there, just so that, I mean, I realize that I have a niche sport and that does limit me, but it is important to me to know when the public is more likely to be there and when the public is less likely to be there.
So the motion I have written down as the motion, and I want to clear that with you. Accept presentation as presented with the caveat to provide to the public information about usage of particular is it WMA? How would we? Or sorry, private lands. What is the official?
WIA.
Walk-in access. Yeah, WIA. Did I confuse you there,
I mean,
Matt?
they're proposing, so they're proposing to eliminate the sign-in boxes. I would just ask that that be replaced with something.
Okay. Except as presented with the caveat to provide land use information to replace sign-in book. Yay, nay?
Yeah, I can go with that, yes.
All right. Is everyone clear as mud on that, on my attempt to clear that motion?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a clarification on that too?
Yes, you may.
Okay, because Matt, I know a lot of us, when we go to these properties, we like to know, how many people are already there, and some of the properties it's pretty easy to tell because there's one parking lot and there's 4 cars there. But is your concern that you want to have kind of real-time data on who's on the landscape, or just a generalized, this is when they seem to be used the most for this type of thing? Which version of that are you kind of more hoping for? That helps me think about what we need to do in the future for that request.
This is more generalized information. I mean, if I go there and there's 5 cars, I'm going to turn around and go home. What I'm looking for is when can I plan to go there where I'm least likely to run into a really busy place.
Okay. That helps me. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept the presentation as presented with the caveat to provide land use information to replace sign-in box. Do I have a second?
This is Randy. I'd second that.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Matt and a second from Randy. Is there any discussion on the motion or questions?
I have a question. This is Ryan. Just during this conversation, I've been looking at the website for the DNR or DWR walk-in access. When I click on the map, it has a filter of choose an activity, and it lists things like mountain biking, camping, canoeing, Christmas tree harvesting, horseback riding, ice skating, picnicking, all these other things that when you're on the first front page of the walk-in access, it lists the 3 activities we've been talking about. It says leased for hunting, trapping, and fishing privileges. But then when you go to the find a property link on the webpage, it lists all these other things, ice skating. I wonder if that's where some of the confusion is coming from in the public's mind of what the purpose of these properties is for.
Ryan, just an observation on my part, because I'm trying to use that website a fair amount now because I like to try to explore these to find new areas. If you look at the map, after you've filtered it, it will limit the IAs if you didn't choose hunt or fish or trap. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Brian.
Yeah, my go ahead.
Let's hear from Brian first, and to answer that question that was directed to him, please.
Okay, so my understanding is that those different activities like ice skating and kite flying and whatever else, they were built into an old database years ago as things that may occur, and we have to go in and actually select those in this database and make them active per property. And so if somebody searched for one of those ulterior things, it actually shouldn't pull up any properties that allow it. Now that may not be entirely true. There may be some that camping was selected, and this may be from 10, 15 years ago, when there were different funding sources and there were different folks running this program and different types of agreements, the leases that were being built, and they've probably just stayed there in place over time. That's one of the main goals that I've got with this position, is to go through and kind of restructure those and hopefully eliminate some of the confusion that is there from our own communications and even the signage on the properties, to kind of help people understand that the money that's paying for these properties is coming from hunters and it's coming from anglers. And that's the reason why we're leasing those properties. And so we're just kind of bringing that back home. But I'm glad to hear that you found those and that we have some more work to do to clean this up a little bit more on that front.
Okay, so thank you, Brian. Right now we have a motion on the table, and we have a second. Before I call a vote, I think that was great information given to us. Matt, did any information that you just heard change your opinion, or would that cause you any problem with the motion that you just made?
No, we're primarily concerned about the risk of being on the same land at the same time as gun hunters, and that's something we try to avoid.
Okay, thank you. Randy, did that change your second of this proposal in any way?
No, it didn't.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, did that, thank you for the clarification or to bring that up. Do you have is there any other comment or question regarding this particular motion that has been made and on the table?
No.
Okay. Thank you. With that being said, we will now call for a vote for the motion to accept the presentation, as presented, with the caveat to provide public land or provide user information to replace the sign-in box at the WIA. We'll now call a vote in favor of this. Ryan.
Yes.
Paul Chase.
Yes.
Junior Goring.
Yes.
Christopher Hogstrom.
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson.
Yes.
Emily Jensko.
Yes.
Matt Clark.
Yes.
Mike Lauder.
Yes.
Kevin McLeod.
Yes.
Darren Perry.
Yes.
Kristen Purdy.
Yes.
And Casey Snyder is excused, has left us. Okay, with Casey being excused, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. With that, we come to our last item on here, and this was a regional presentation that was offered by Ashley Kijowski, who is the wildlife biologist at the Willard Spur WMA and concerning, I guess she is over the Willard Spur WMA. I'm getting some. Is everyone able to hear me? I'm hearing a lot of come back into my ear for some reason. Do we have any questions for Ashley at this time concerning the presentation that she made concerning the Willard Spur WMA Habitat Management Plan? No questions? Any comments concerning this? Okay. This is not an action item, only informational. Ashley, is there anything that you'd like to add on top of the presentation that we were able to view?
No, I think I covered everything, and they should have received the plan in the RAC packet.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that information and for your hard work in providing that.
Mr. Chair, could I just add a comment?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate the privilege. I just want to thank Ashley for her good work. And there was a team of DWR biologists and staff that engaged with various users and including the local county, and have really walked this process through from start to finish. And just want to thank you guys for your good work there. And the root of this is legislation that was actually sponsored by Representative Snyder, RAC member Casey Snyder, who had to be dismissed. So I think he's happy to see this come across the finish line as well. So thanks, Ashley.
And did you want to go over any of the comments? There was one comment.
Yeah, we did forget that. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. So there was almost 43% in support of the proposal, almost the same exact amount, well, the exact same amount, 42.86% that were neutral, and just 14% were opposed. And Ashley, if you can remind me of the comment, was it related to fishing?
Yeah, there was just one concern about bow fishing, and I just wanted to clarify that it will be allowed on the WMA, so there won't be any changes to access and bow fishing.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder, Ashley.
You're welcome.
I will make the comment that I'm excited you guys are going to work on that road. It's awful.
We're excited and hopeful too.
And we're trying to. That's going to take a big effort and a big amount of money. But again, that's another effort that Ashley has really spearheaded and has been a huge undertaking. So thanks again for that, Ash.
I believe that is all that we have. I would like to take 1 second to, I should have done this during the Wildlife Board meeting update, but something that at the end of the Wildlife Board meeting that I brought up and many other of the RAC Chair, actually all of the RAC chairs agreed on, is we appreciated this process of having the presentations. I know they've actually been available to us for since I believe August, or last few of before our RAC meetings. We had the ability to go and view the presentations prior to coming to the meeting. What I've liked so much about it is I noticed that either both with this particular RAC meeting and our one previous, that RAC members came prepared, aware of the issues, and enjoyed it so much that while I enjoyed it so much, and talked with many of our RAC members after the meeting, not with all of you, I apologize, but because of that, I brought up and recommended to the Wildlife Board that perhaps we look at doing this when the time does come that we are able to meet in person again, that we try to follow this same procedure as far as the presentation will no longer be presented at our RAC meeting. We will still we still want the public to come, and it's very important. The public will be able to come and to comment and to make, come up with comments and questions, but I believe it would speed the meeting up and help people be more familiar, everyone more familiar with the presentations if they were to watch it before. So I made a suggestion to the Wildlife Board that they investigate and look into doing that. Is there, I don't know if there's anyone that may be opposed of if I continue to try to push this I guess this agenda to eliminate having the presentations being presented live to us during our RAC meetings when the time does come that we meet.
I would certainly be in favor of this. I think it makes for a much more informed discussion at the actual meeting itself.
All right. Again, we got a ways to go, but it was, the idea throughout all of the RAC chairs was that we were all in favor of that, and so I hope just that we can see that in the future. So I wanted. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, I agree. I think it rather than listening to the presentation at the meeting and only hearing the presentation at the meeting, we don't have the time to really think it over and think of questions. I think that being able to review the presentation online makes me more able to and more informed for the meeting. I like the idea. Appreciate you doing that.
Again, the RAC packets are still important because a lot of the data, there is data that's inside of them that inside of those packets that's not presented, some of the numbers and not everything, but it would still be important that we look at the packets and go through some of those numbers, but exactly by being able to hear hear the presentation a few days before really does help prepare us. So I just wanted to, for the record, let people know that I did that, and I apologize for doing this at the end. Jody, you want to say something?
Yes, Junior Goring wanted me to relay the message that he agrees as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Justin.
If there's no other, yes, Kristen, please.
Justin, I'd like to sort of give a different opinion about this one, because having the presentations online and available in advance definitely helps us prepare. But I feel like our discussion is better. And for members of the public who can attend the meeting, the discussion is better when we get the information at the same time as we have the discussion. So, I mean, in the best of both worlds would be to have the presentations videotaped and online in advance, and also have the people come to the meetings. Now, I do understand there are people groaning out there saying, this is going to increase the workload of folks that might be making presentations. But my concern about the forum that we are doing right now is that the forum is somewhat hampers public involvement. And for members of the public who can come, that we get great discussion. Lots of people who might not have thought to come up to the microphone and had their say there, but it was something about the discussion and the in-person presentation that caused that to happen. Therefore, we elicited more, better public opinion. And in my view, that's what it's all about. And so I am not sure that having those presentations available only in advance online would capture that benefit to the public. And this is what our forum is all about. It's all about getting that public input.
Yes. Kristen, thank you for your input. And just for the record, that it currently is for the last few, I believe, since last August was the first time that was available. Right now, the current assuming that we meet back again in live, and when we do, that will be what the process will be, that they are at this time, they're already going to continue to video and do those presentations for us to watch. And as of right now, you know, they will do them live. And I think it's good that we have everyone's opinion and everyone's idea. And I respect your opinion on that. And I would hope those who are in charge of actually making these decisions on how to go forward will take all of our opinions into consideration and move forward. But it is important that, you know, the purpose of these meetings is to allow the public to, and we as RAC members are the public as well, to allow us to have our say and to allow us to be involved in the decisions that are being made. And so the last thing we want to do is take away from that. And so I agree. I don't want to take away with that. And you know, we invite the division as this comes forward, that they can take all of our suggestions and opinions into consideration as moving forward on how the RAC process will proceed in the future. I hope we all get to meet together here before too long. You know, so thank you. Any other questions or comments before I call for a motion to adjourn this meeting? If not, I would entertain again a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Who? Okay, I lost that. So who made the motion?
Kevin.
Kevin did. Okay. And I saw Randy seconded that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have a motion to adjourn the meeting. I'll now do a roll call to do so. Ryan Brown.
Yes.
Paul Chase.
Yes.
Junior Goring.
Yes.
Christopher Hogstrom.
Yes.
Randy Hutchinson.
Yes.
Emily Jensko.
Yes.
Matt Clark.
Yes.
Mike Lauder.
Yes.
Kevin McLeod.
Yes.
Darren Perry. Okay, I'm not hearing from Darren at this time. Kristen Purdy.
Yes.
And Casey Snyder is excused. I'm sure if Darren was here, he would be ready to end. He may have already ended. So with that, motion passes to adjourn the meeting. And I appreciate everyone's input and hope everyone has a great rest of their evening. And there's enough time that I may be able to get out and go see where the turkeys are roosting tonight, so I can watch for them tomorrow morning. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.